Welcome back to the Vale Echo, where we uncover the darkest corners of forgotten mysteries. Tonight's story begins with a quiet countryside house, an ordinary home that held an unspeakable secret. As the sun sank behind the trees, a family of four pulled up to their new beginning. Laughter filled the air as boxes were unloaded and dreams took shape. But among the furniture that came with the house, there was one thing that didn't belong: the bunk bed. Old, heavy, carved from dark wood that seemed to breathe with its own life. The children, two young siblings, claimed it right away. "This one's perfect," they said, climbing up and down the frame. The parents smiled, unaware of the strange patterns etched into its sides, symbols faintly burned into the wood like scars of something ancient. That night, as they settled into their new home, everything felt peaceful, almost too peaceful. The moonlight crept through the window, painting silver shadows across the room. The bunk bed stood still, yet something about it felt wrong. The younger child stirred in sleep, whispering to someone unseen. A faint sound echoed beneath the bed, soft, rhythmic, almost like breathing. When the boy sat up, his eyes widened. There, just for a second, something moved in the dark beneath him. But when he leaned closer, nothing, only silence. The next morning, their father inspected the room. Dust lingered in the air, and when his flashlight brushed across the wooden frame, he saw something strange: tiny shapes carved deep inside the slats. Circles and lines forming symbols he didn't recognize. He ran his fingers across them, a cold shiver crawling up his arm. Later that day, a knock came at the door. It was their elderly neighbor holding an old photograph. Her eyes were sharp, her face pale. "That bed," she whispered, "it's been here before, you should get rid of it." Confused, the mother looked closer at the photo and her heart froze. The same bunk bed stood in the picture, surrounded by children who were never seen again. As dusk returned, the house seemed to hold its breath. The air grew heavy, the walls colder. The children played quietly near the bed, their laughter fading into uneasy silence. When the lights flickered, the mother turned to look, and for a brief moment she saw it. A faint reflection of faces in the wood, their mouths open in silent screams. That night, as the family slept, the house groaned with age. The bunk bed's frame creaked ever so slightly, as if something beneath it was shifting, waiting. The wind outside howled through the trees, and in that long, haunted night the first whispers began. The old woman's warning echoed in the mother's mind. That bed remembers every child who ever slept in it. And somewhere in the shadows of that quiet countryside home, the bed was remembering again. The whispers began softly, like the hum of a distant lullaby that no one remembered singing. Each night they grew clearer, weaving through the creaks of the old house and the sigh of the wind. The children spoke of voices coming from beneath the bed, gentle at first, calling their names as if from a dream. The parents dismissed it as imagination, the natural fear of a new place. But as nights passed, even they began to feel the weight of something unseen pressing on the walls. One evening, the younger child woke with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Someone under the bed," he whispered. His brother leaned over, flashlight trembling in his hand, and shone it into the darkness below. Empty. Only toys, dust, and a faint shimmer like a heat wave rising from the wood, yet the boy swore he saw fingers retreating into the shadows. The father, now worried, took a closer look the next morning. He crouched down, examining every inch of the bunk bed. Deep inside the frame, the carvings seemed to shift with the light, symbols twisting into faces. The air around the bed felt heavy, almost charged, and when he touched the wood, he felt it pulse faintly beneath his hand like a heartbeat. Later, the family invited a local historian, hoping for an explanation. She brushed her fingers over the wood and frowned. "This isn't just furniture," she said quietly. "It's a memorial, or maybe a prison." Her voice trembled as she revealed a piece of history long buried. Decades ago, this very bed had belonged to another family, three children who vanished without a trace. The only thing left behind was the bed itself. That night, fear gripped the family. The parents decided to sleep in the same room as the children, keeping watch. The house was silent except for the ticking clock and the faint whistle of wind. Midnight came, the lights flickered, the temperature dropped suddenly, breath turning to mist in the air, and then soft thuds like small footsteps came from within the walls. The mother reached for her husband's hand, trembling. The shadows beneath the bed began to move again, but this time they didn't hide. Long, smoky shapes stretched out, curling like fingers over the floorboards. The whispers turned into cries, children's voices echoing in pain, begging to be freed. Panicked, the father grabbed the bed, trying to lift it, but it was rooted to the ground as if the floor itself refused to let go. The lights burst, plunging the room into darkness. The children screamed. For a split second, glowing faces appeared within the wooden slats, eyes hollow, mouths open in endless terror, then just as quickly they were gone. When the lights returned, silence filled the room. Everyone was still breathing, but the carvings on the wood had changed again. Now there were more faces, familiar ones. And as the mother stared in horror, she realized one of them looked just like her son. The house no longer felt like a home. Every corner seemed alive with something watching, waiting. The bunk bed stood in the center of it all, silent and unmoving, yet it pulsed with a presence that no one could ignore. After the last night's horror, the family was desperate. The father called the police, who searched the house top to bottom but found nothing except strange scratches on the floorboards and a smell of burned wood lingering in the air. The officers dismissed it as stress. But when they left, the whispers began again, stronger, sharper, filled with anger. The mother couldn't sleep. She sat by her children, clutching them close as the night deepened. The wind howled outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, and the lights began to flicker once more. From beneath the bed came a long, low creak. The older child whispered, "It's calling again." Suddenly the bed shook. The wood groaned, twisting like something alive. The parents tried to pull the children away, but invisible hands seemed to grip them tight. The younger boy screamed as his legs were dragged under the frame. The father grabbed him, pulling hard, but it was like fighting against the weight of the earth itself. Then the room erupted with cold air, every candle extinguished, every window shattered. The mother screamed, and through the darkness, faint shapes emerged, figures of pale, ghostly children crawling out from the bunk bed's surface. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly blue, their mouths moving in silence. Each one seemed to reach out, not in malice but in sorrow. They surrounded the bed, their small hands pressing into the wood, their faces flickering between pain and pleading. In desperation, the father ran to the basement, returning with gasoline and a lighter. The mother protested, but he shouted, "It's the only way." He poured the liquid across the bed, his hands trembling, and struck the flame. The moment fire touched the wood, the room exploded in a flash of light. Screams filled the air, not human screams, but hundreds of voices crying out at once. The entire house shook as if the earth beneath it roared in fury. The parents dragged the children out of the room, stumbling through smoke and debris as the fire consumed everything. The bunk bed burned bright, its carved faces melting away, releasing shapes of light that spiraled upward and vanished into the ceiling. For a moment, the mother thought she saw the faces of the lost children smiling, finally free. When dawn arrived, nothing remained but ashes and silence. The house was gone, reduced to ruins. The family stood trembling among the debris, clinging to one another. But as the smoke cleared, the father noticed something half buried in the ash, a single piece of wood, smooth and untouched by the fire. It pulsed once, faintly, like a heartbeat. And in that moment he knew the curse was never gone.